Millions of roaches reported in a Mars pet food facility. Welcome back to Off-Label Veterinary News, your source for commentary on animals, medicine, and practice life. Please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so that we can reach as many of our veterinary colleagues as possible. Let's jump in to a big story that your clients are going to be talking about. A Mars pet food facility located in Columbus, Ohio, was the subject of an FDA investigation from late 2016 until mid-2017. In October of 2016, Mars recalled over 54,000 cases of Caesar Classics filet mignon flavor canned dog food after consumers complained about finding hard plastics. During the course of this investigation, the FDA entered into these facilities and asked to see all of their maintenance records, their pest control records, you name it. According to the Mars facility's employee pest sighting logs, there were 99 instances of pest activity observed during 72 days from November 2016 to July 2017, including one instance described as millions of roaches. They also noted that they saw birds, spiderwebs, beetles, multiple flies, maggots, and larvae on several occasions. Again, those are Mars employees making their own observations in their own internal records. Some critics have said, oh, this was just an employee exaggerating it. But I've got news for you. If you work in a veterinary hospital, please don't make a medical entry saying something like, well, the dog was nearly dead, or we really screwed up. Because if you do that, you might get in trouble. So I don't think for a second that an employee was making a joke or just exaggerating for the fun of it. I think they found millions of cockroaches crawling around and maggots and flies and all these other things that they reported. Now, what's most troubling to me was the fact that during the course of the investigation, in which an FDA investigator actually saw a live cockroach on the pet food producing floor where they make the pet foods, but Mars failed to comply with some very basic requests by the FDA. Now, if the FDA comes into your facility, it's just like the DEA or the police or any type of government agency, and they ask you to do certain things, you probably should. Mars refused the FDA to take photographs, to review consumer complaints, or to provide photocopies of these consumer complaints, manufacturing, shipping, and pest control records. Also interesting to me was that in the internal records of Mars, there are many mentions of there being photographs of these insects, including these roaches. And yet somehow, amazingly, when the FDA said, well, may we see these pictures that you note in your record, they couldn't find them. Now, I'm not reporting this story as a specific knock on Mars Petcare. In fact, I think they do a lot of things right. What I am urging veterinary professionals to look into is just the general manufacturing practices around pet foods in our country and abroad. Because as this shows, Mars, who I think is doing as good a job as anybody, they're still falling well short of what I think we deserve when we open that bag or can of pet food for our pets. So, off-labelers, I want to hear what you think about this story. I mean, again, this wasn't just one or two things. There were several things that concern me and the FDA. This investigation has been closed. In fact, one of the things that they asked Mars to do is just change the color of certain plastic materials on the production line, like from white, which is more difficult to see in pet food, to something like bright blue that would be easier for pet owners to recognize if it somehow inadvertently got into the pet food. Unfortunately, when the investigation was closed at this facility, Mars reported that the majority, not all, but the majority of the plastic moving parts had been changed to this bright blue. So again, off-labelers, what do you think? What should we be doing? Should we be demanding more from the pet food manufacturers that supply the foods to the majority of our pet patients? Or is this just sort of status quo and you know what? It's pet food after all. I want to hear from you. Well, that's it for another edition of Off-Label Veterinary News. If you like content like this, please do me a favor and think about subscribing and ring the notification bell so you'll find out as soon as content like this drops on your internet doorstep. Until next time, keep living that off-label life. Bye.